Picture this. One sentence from Ivanka Trump on a public stage was all it took to set off a storm. But Jasmine Crockett didn't respond with outrage. She responded with a $100 million lawsuit and a message that silenced the noise. What you're about to hear isn't just about politics or celebrity feuds. It's about the moment one woman decided that enough was enough. The ballroom at the Renaissance Hotel in Arlington was packed wall to wall. Over 800 people had come out for the Women's National Leadership Forum. Corporate executives, lawmakers, organizers, media personalities. Every seat filled. Bright stage lights bounced off crystal chandeliers overhead. This wasn't just another D.C. event. It was live-streamed nationwide. CNBC was broadcasting in real time. Big sponsors like Deloitte and Meta had backed it. The whole thing pitched as a celebration of unity across the political aisle. That's why there was so much buzz around this specific panel: power, policy, and presence. 5 women sat on stage. 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, 1 moderator. Cameras rolled as the panelists took turns answering pre-screened questions. Nothing out of the ordinary. There were chuckles, applause, respectful nods. Then came a question from the audience mic. A young black woman stood up and asked, "What do you think the biggest challenge is for women of color trying to gain leadership roles in politics?" The moderator looked left, then right. "Ivanka, would you like to take that one?" Ivanka Trump, seated in a cream blazer and heels that probably cost more than the room's lighting setup, crossed her legs and leaned forward. She smiled. The room quieted. Well, she began smoothly. "I think one of the challenges comes down to emotional control." A few people shifted in their chairs. She went on, "I've observed that professionalism and temperament are sometimes lacking, especially when you're dealing with women who are a bit too reactive, like Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett." Silence. Flat, heavy silence. Ivanka gave a light laugh, as if what she said wasn't as pointed as it sounded. "I mean, no disrespect," she added. "But when people are quick to anger or dramatic in hearings, it doesn't help anyone. I think temperament matters. Decorum matters." Someone in the back coughed. One panelist's eyes dropped straight to her lap. Another looked directly at the moderator, who had gone pale. The air in the room wasn't just tense. It was suffocating. It took the moderator almost 10 seconds to speak again. She cleared her throat. "Thank you for that perspective. Let's move to the next panelist." But the camera feed had already done its job. In less than 30 seconds, the comment had been clipped, reposted, and tweeted by accounts with millions of followers. The name Jasmine Crockett started trending before the next question was even asked. And out in Dallas, Texas, Jasmine Crockett, who wasn't even scheduled to be at the summit, was sitting at her kitchen table eating leftover chicken salad when her phone lit up with 4 messages in a row. "Yo, you see what Ivanka just said about you, girl? She named you on stage straight up. This ain't okay. You trending." She blinked and opened her browser. There it was. Front page of Twitter. Her name in bold. Jasmine hit play on a clip from a verified account. As Ivanka's voice played through her phone speakers, Jasmine didn't move, didn't talk. Her eyes narrowed. The only sound in the room was a hum of the fridge. Her chief of staff, Deidre Monroe, called seconds later. "We've got a situation." Jasmine didn't answer right away. Deidre's voice got firmer. "This is going to blow up." "I heard," Jasmine said quietly. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't throw her phone. But something changed in her face. A stillness. The kind that comes before someone decides what kind of storm they're about to walk into. Because this wasn't some vague comment about politics. Ivanka had named her, labeled her, and done it live with a smirk. That ballroom didn't erupt in boos. No one rushed the mic to correct it. And that silence, that was louder than any insult. But silence wouldn't be Jasmine's next move. By the time the panel wrapped up and Ivanka Trump stepped down from the stage with her smile still in place, the comment had already reached millions. On TikTok, a political page posted the clip with the caption, "Ivanka says Jasmine Crockett lacked professionalism. Wild." It had 80,000 views in under 15 minutes. On X, things moved even faster. Screenshots started circulating. Some people cheered. Others were stunned. Many were angry. In group chats, especially among black professionals and political organizers, the reactions were fierce. One organizer in Oakland texted her network. That was a textbook dog whistle. You don't name a black woman on a national stage and link her to emotional instability. Not in 2025. Not with a straight face. The clip even reached barbershops and break rooms by that afternoon. In a cafe in Birmingham, a group of university students pulled the video up on a laptop. Man, she really said that like she wasn't being recorded. She knew exactly what she was doing. That wasn't an accident. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett's team was trying to get ahead of it. They held an emergency Zoom meeting that afternoon. Cameras off, voices tight. Are we releasing a statement? One staffer asked. Deidre shook her head. Not yet. Jasmine doesn't want to say anything tonight. She's still watching, still reading. Truth was, Jasmine had been quiet all day. Not because she didn't have a response, but because she understood how fast things can spiral when people speak in anger. She knew her name had been thrown into a fire she didn't start, and she wasn't about to fan it with a rushed quote. But what happens next? Little did anyone know, Jasmine was already 3 steps ahead. Jasmine Crockett woke up before the sun had even cracked through her bedroom blinds in Dallas. She hadn't slept much. Her phone was still buzzing from overnight notifications. National news outlets were requesting interviews. Editorials were already asking whether Ivanka's comments would damage Jasmine's future political career. The nerve. She sat at the edge of her bed in a t-shirt and sweatpants, elbows on her knees, just staring at the floor. The clip had played in her mind like a looped recording. Not just what Ivanka said, but how she said it. Calm, controlled, like it was just another bullet point in a PowerPoint presentation. 10 minutes later, she called her mother. Mama, you up? Her mother's voice came soft but alert. Baby, I've been up since 5. You okay? Jasmine didn't answer right away. Her mom let out a breath. I saw the clip. I know, Jasmine said. You don't have to prove anything to these people, Jazz, but you also don't have to let it slide. Jasmine's eyes welled a little, but she wiped them fast. I'm not rushing into nothing. She hung up, then called her communications director. Talia, nothing goes out yet. No statements, no interviews. I need 24 hours. Let it breathe. You sure? Even a short statement could slow the story down. No, Jasmine said. They want me to react fast. I'm not giving them that. I want to think. It was the same strategy she used in court. Don't lead with heat. Lead with clarity. So while the rest of the internet kept spiraling, while hashtags like #CrockettVivanka kept climbing the charts, Jasmine disappeared from public view for a full day. No tweets, no press conferences, no quotes. She spent the day at a small law office in Oak Cliff, sitting across from an old friend named Iris Kaplan, a civil rights attorney who had been her mentor back in her early legal days. Iris had a voice like sandpaper and didn't waste time. You already know what I'm going to say, Iris said, arms crossed. Jasmine raised an eyebrow. Say it anyway? She defamed you. Jasmine nodded slowly. She said your name, questioned your temperament, connected it to your identity, did it on live national TV, and the clips have racked up over 10 million views already. Jasmine didn't blink. You've got a case. A hard one, yeah, but a real one, especially with that audience size and her platform. Jasmine leaned back in her chair. I'm not trying to prove her wrong. I'm trying to prove a point. Iris smiled just a little. Then we need to move carefully. Let it build. Let the weight land. They sat in silence for a beat. Then Jasmine asked, if I do this, what's it going to look like? Iris's smile disappeared. It's going to look like war. That night, Jasmine went home alone and turned off her phone. She lit one candle, then sat down at her kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and pen. She wrote a single word across the top, respect. Below that, she scribbled notes, bullet points, phrases she'd seen online, things that hurt, things that resonated. She wasn't just preparing to respond. She was building something bigger. By Thursday morning, Jasmine's team was back in the conference room at her district office. The energy in the room was tight, and nobody touched the breakfast spread on the side table. "This is day 3, Deidre said. No public response, no statement. People are getting antsy. CNN wants her on Anderson Cooper 360. MSNBC asked again. NPR called twice, Talia added. Someone in the back mumbled, "We could run a soft piece. Lean into healing leadership." Jasmine walked in mid-sentence. She had her coat over her arm and a folder tucked under it. She looked calm but direct. "No soft piece," she said, setting the folder on the table. "We're not managing this like a PR slip. This wasn't about poor wording or tone. This was personal, intentional." The room fell silent. "Look," she continued, "we're not just dealing with her words. We're dealing with what they represent. I don't want to explain why I'm not what she said. I want to explain why this matters." Later that day, Jasmine sat down for a private meeting with 2 trusted policy aides and Iris Kaplan. The legal folder sat between them. Inside it, timestamps, transcripts, printouts of viral posts, and internal legal memos. Iris pointed at the copy of the clipped transcript. Her words were clear. "She used your name, implied a mental state, questioned your professionalism, then linked that to your identity. That's defamation, and we can argue it. But it's more than that," Jasmine said. "She didn't just hurt my image. She cracked open every stereotype people have been throwing at black women forever, and she did it on the record. Which is exactly why it's not just your reputation that took the hit. It's your credibility as a public servant. That's your professional currency." That night, Reverend Franklin Keyes from Shiloh Baptist Church in Fort Worth called her personally. His voice was weathered, but firm. "Sister Jasmine, let me tell you something. You carry more than your name now. This isn't about her words. It's about who we let talk over us without accountability." "I hear you," Jasmine replied quietly. He paused. "Then make sure she hears you, too." The next morning felt different. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just preparing a response. She was preparing a move that would send a ripple through the very structure of how women like her are spoken about in politics. The legal team gathered in a private boardroom at a mid-rise building off Ross Avenue in Dallas. When Jasmine entered, she wasn't flanked by anyone. No entourage. Just her in a navy blue blazer, white button-down shirt, and fresh braids pulled back clean. She carried a yellow legal pad and sat at the head of the table, without saying a word for the first minute. Iris broke the silence. "Before we start, just be clear, this isn't going to be easy. Ivanka's got money. She's got lawyers. She's got friends in the media. This is David versus Goliath. If Goliath had unlimited PR support." "I know," Jasmine said calmly, "but I'm not filing the suit to play defense." We reviewed the footage again. She said your full name. She made the direct claim that you lack professionalism and emotional stability, and she tied it to your role as a lawmaker. That's more than opinion. That's character damage. She wasn't speaking as a private citizen either. Iris added. She was at a corporate-sponsored leadership summit representing herself as a political figure and a former White House advisor. The room was filled with influencers, CEOs, donors. This wasn't a dinner party. Jasmine looked up. "So what's our legal ground?" "Defamation per SE public figure or not, there's a line. She didn't just criticize your politics. She implied you were mentally unfit for leadership. That's not protected speech when it's false and provably damaging." Jasmine was quiet for a moment. Then she opened her notepad. On the top sheet, she had written 2 words in capital letters. An apology. By early afternoon, the legal paperwork was drafted. A $100 million lawsuit. Crockett versus Trump. Iris slid the folder toward her. "You sure about this?" Jasmine didn't hesitate. She signed. "File it." Friday, noon, Dallas City Hall Plaza. The air was heavy with summer heat. And still, the crowd grew by the minute. People weren't just showing up because they were curious. They came because something about this felt different. Local news vans lined perimeter. Reporters stood shoulder to shoulder behind metal barricades. A podium sat at the center with one plain sign, Office of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. No slogans, no drama, just presence. And Jasmine? She was calm, focused, dressed in a fitted black suit and white blouse. No jewelry except for a thin gold bracelet her mother gave her when she passed the bar. Her braids were pulled into a bun, her hands clasped, her eyes steady. "You ready?" Deidre asked. Jasmine didn't smile. She just said, "Always." As she stepped up to the podium, the crowd hushed almost instantly. Even the murmurs from the back faded. She looked out over the people, paused, and took a breath. "My name is Jasmine Crockett. I serve the people of Texas's 30th District, and I'm here today to talk about truth." Click. Cameras snapped. Boom. Mics leaned in. 3 days ago, during a nationally televised summit, a prominent public figure chose to speak my name in a context that questioned my fitness to lead. She didn't critique my policies. She didn't challenge my votes. She went for something else, something far more calculated. She held up a printed quote from the transcript. These words, spoken on a stage paid for by corporate dollars and broadcast to millions, weren't just careless. They were harmful, not just to me, but to every black woman who's ever been told she's too emotional to be respected. A few murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Some people nodded. One woman near the front clutched her chest. I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't care, not because I wasn't hurt, but because I needed to be deliberate. I've spent my entire life being deliberate. She paused, then pulled out a second piece of paper. Today I'm announcing that I filed a $100 million defamation lawsuit against Ivanka Trump. The reaction was instant. Reporters leaned forward. Some gasped. The flashes went wild. "I want to be very clear," Jasmine said firmly. "This is not about revenge. This is about accountability." The words that were said weren't opinion. They were character attacks. They were reckless. And they were part of a long, ugly pattern of silencing women like me. She stepped back slightly, letting the weight of the moment settle. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon. I didn't come from a political dynasty. Everything I have, I earned through law school, through grassroots campaigning, through late nights reading case law and early mornings knocking doors. So when someone tries to reduce me to a stereotype on national television, I don't walk away quietly. More than one person in the crowd shouted yes in response. And for those who say I should have just ignored it, let me say this. Silence has never protected us. Silence has never built equity. Silence has never told the truth. If someone with Ivanka Trump's platform can say what she said and walk away untouched, what message does that send to every young black girl who dares to lead? She let that question hang long enough for it to settle. This lawsuit is about dignity. Mine, yours, ours. We deserve to be spoken with respect, even by those who disagree with us, especially by those who disagree with us. Reporters began shouting questions. When did you decide to sue? Have you heard from Ivanka Trump's legal team? Do you plan to settle? Jasmine held up her hand. There'll be a time for those answers. Today was about one thing, standing up and saying enough. She stepped down. No victory lap. No grand gesture. Just walked straight toward her mother, who was standing just outside the press box, arms wide open. They hugged quietly, no words. The crowd didn't erupt. There was no cheering section, but people stayed watching, processing. They'd seen press conferences before, but this wasn't just that. It felt more like a reckoning. Can you believe this? The lawsuit was barely 6 hours old when the headlines exploded. Every major network picked it up. Fox News ran a panel where talking heads called her opportunistic. But on The View, co-host Arlette Banks got emotional reading the lawsuit excerpt on air. This isn't just about Jasmine. I've had white donors question my tone in meetings. I've had colleagues tell me to smile more. You think this lawsuit is dramatic? It's overdue. On TikTok, young black women stitched together videos of Jasmine's speech with their own workplace stories about being called aggressive in meetings, being labeled difficult for doing their jobs. Meanwhile, back in Dallas, Jasmine kept working like nothing had changed. She met with constituents. She reviewed housing policy drafts. She showed up to a town hall in Oak Cliff and answered every question without skipping a beat. To her, the lawsuit wasn't distraction. It was a statement. Her office received over 100 angry voicemails in the first 2 days. Her staff filtered messages for threats. One email said, "Go back to being a public defender if you can't take criticism." Jasmine didn't respond to those directly. She never did. But when Deidre handed her the latest batch of filtered hate mail, Jasmine didn't even flinch. She slid it into a folder labeled Noise. She focused instead on letters like the one from a retired school principal in St. Louis. "Dear Congresswoman Crockett, I'm 71 years old. I've worked under 5 principals, for superintendents, and 3 mayors. Every one of them questioned my tone at some point. You're doing this for more than just yourself. Thank you." That letter stayed on her desk. Inside Ivanka Trump's circle, there was nothing but silence. No public apology, no clarification, just one vague legal statement released by her spokesperson. "We believe this lawsuit is without merit and are confident in our position." But silence said a lot. This is where it gets crazy. The more Jasmine stood firm, the more others began to speak louder for her and for themselves. That same day, 31 black women in public office signed a public letter backing Jasmine titled, "We are not overreacting. We are done being mute." Political strategist Elisa Perrin went viral on X when she posted, "Imagine being more upset about Jasmine Crockett suing over a public insult than about the fact that powerful white women think they can say anything without consequence." Back in Palm Beach, inside a gated estate far from Capitol Hill, Ivanka Trump wasn't pacing or panicking. She was working the phones. Her top legal advisor flew in from New York. "I need to know how bad this is legally," Ivanka said. "It's bad," came the response. "You said her name. Then you implied she's emotionally unstable and lacks professionalism on a live public stage. That's not protected when it's specific and damaging. Everyone's so sensitive now. I didn't mean it like that. It doesn't matter how you meant it. It's about how it landed and how it's playing." By Monday morning, Ivanka's inner circle knew one thing for sure. The longer they waited, the worse it got. 3 corporate sponsors from the summit released statements distancing themselves. Even quietly, behind closed doors, Republican donors started grumbling. But here's what caught everyone off guard. Jasmine Crockett wasn't on cable news. She wasn't doing sit-down interviews with late-night hosts. She was walking the hallways of Dunbar High School with the principal. "They keep asking if I'll bring you in to talk to the seniors," the principal said. "Especially the girls. They're all watching this unfold like it's a movie." Jasmine stopped at the end of the hallway and turned toward a trophy case. "It's not a movie," she said softly. "It's real life. And real life doesn't end when the credits roll." The lawsuit had sparked something wider. The word defamation became a conversation starter in classrooms, book clubs, church groups. Black women across the country began sharing their own stories. Microaggressions at work, assumptions about temperament, the daily calculations required just to be taken seriously. In a Baltimore salon, 2 women were mid-conversation under hair dryers. "She's not suing because she's hurt," one said. "She's suing because she knows she's not the only one." Wait until you hear what she says next. Jasmine met with a group of teenage girls from a mentorship program. They sat around a table, notebooks out, eyes wide. "Do you ever get scared?" one girl asked. "All the time," Jasmine said. "But scared doesn't mean silent." Another girl raised her hand. "How do you know when to speak up?" Jasmine leaned in. "When being quiet starts to feel like betrayal." They wrote that down. That Sunday, she stood at the pulpit of her childhood church. The pastor motioned to her before closing. "Sister Crockett, thank you for walking with dignity when they try to drag you, for showing us what righteous anger looks like when you don't let it ruin your grace." She didn't cry, but her hands trembled slightly as the congregation stood. This wasn't the kind of noise that fades in a week. It was cultural. It was generational. It was black women saying, "We are not your punching bags. We are not your jokes. And we are not going to play along when you pretend what you said doesn't hurt." It had been 2 weeks since the lawsuit was filed. The headlines were starting to cool, but the impact wasn't fading. On a quiet Tuesday morning, Jasmine stood in her office overlooking downtown Dallas, flipping through a handwritten stack of letters. One caught her eye. I'm 14, and I want to be a lawyer like you. My teacher played your press conference in class. Everyone said you looked angry, but I thought you looked brave. She smiled just a little and set the letter aside. That one she'd keep. Her phone buzzed. It was Iris Kaplan. Judge signed off on the service. Ivanka's team has the paperwork. Clock starts now. Jasmine didn't say anything right away. She didn't feel victorious. She didn't feel relieved. She just felt steady. Thanks, she replied. Let me know when they respond. Then she hung up and stood for a while in the stillness. There was no parade, no cameras, no marching band outside her door. And that was just fine. This was never about noise. It was about accountability. It was about drawing a line and standing there, even if you had to do it alone. But she wasn't alone anymore. At the law school in Austin, a professor added her case to the curriculum for a media law class. In Los Angeles, a young black city councilwoman referenced her during a town hall. They tell us to toughen up, but toughness doesn't mean silence, as Congresswoman Crockett showed us. And in homes across America, mothers and grandmothers used her name in conversations they'd never been able to have before. Not just about racism, but about the quiet disrespect women are expected to swallow every day. Ivanka Trump's team issued a formal response. Predictable, dismissive. The claims are baseless and politically motivated. No apology, no retraction. Jasmine read it once, nodded, and moved on. She wasn't waiting for an apology. She'd never needed one to move forward. What mattered now was a precedent. That someone stood up and said, "You can't say whatever you want just because you're comfortable. You can't dress up disrespect and expect us to thank you for critique." Before her next meeting started, she glanced at the wall where a framed photo of Shirley Chisholm hung, her favorite quote below it. "If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair." She didn't just bring her chair. She built a table. And now every woman watching, every girl taking notes, knew they didn't have to shrink when challenged. They didn't have to smile through insult. They didn't have to walk away quietly just to keep the peace. They had an example, someone who had been told she was too much, and responded by being just enough to shake the system. So if anyone still thought this was about ego, they missed the point. It was never about being liked. It was about being heard. Because when people stop apologizing for being themselves, they don't just speak louder. They speak for more than one.